We're fearlessly talking about the biggest stories that matter to you the most. Breaking news, John Calipari is finalizing a 5-year deal to become the Arkansas Razorbacks' next head coach, covering college sports like no one else. The biggest guests in sports. We now welcome in Hall of Famer Jim Calhoun.
Such a pride I had, I came to connect.
The legend, Tim Tebow, joins us.
We'll run it back. I like it.
The legend, Herschel Walker. Welcome in, everybody. Thursday afternoon edition, Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. And boy, oh boy, do we have a loaded Thursday, Friday show for you today. And I don't think there's anything else in the world, maybe in all the world of sports, bigger than what's going to happen Saturday night in Lexington, Kentucky. John Calipari's return. And we're going to be largely breaking that puppy down from all angles, the good, the bad, and also we will bring in a very special guest. So we'll open the show, just the conversation that everybody's having. How will Kentucky fans react Saturday? By the way, UK fans, I promise you, I'm not going to lecture you or tell you how you should act. It is up to you. I do not care, nor should any other person in the media. But we'll talk about what is the reception and reaction going to be. From there, we will bring in a guest. We don't do a ton of guests, but John Nabors, we had him on over the summer inside Arkansas, locked on the Razorbacks. I brought him in because I really wanted the Arkansas perspective on the Calipari experience. What is going on? What is wrong? And frankly, how do Arkansas fans feel about John Calipari? So we're going to have John Nabors on for a nice, healthy 25 to 30-minute interview. Cannot wait to talk to him. And then we're going to wrap the show. We'll preview a loaded slate on Saturday. Arkansas at Kentucky, Duke, Carolina, UConn-Marquette, Florida, Tennessee, and a top 10 matchup. So we got ourselves a loaded show. So fired up to get going. Before we get started, quick reminder, make sure that you are subscribed to the Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. New clips, new videos going up every single day on YouTube, closing in on 50,000 subscribers. But we really do need your support. Subscribe on YouTube, Apple, Spotify as well. If you want to do your boy Torres a solid, leave a 5-star rating and review. We really would appreciate that because we are pumping out content. We are rocking and rolling. I'm so proud of how this show and this channel has grown. By the way, I should mention it off the top. If you are an advertiser, if you want to get in front of hundreds of thousands of people a month, hundreds of thousands of people during March Madness, please reach out to me, Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com. I would love to work with you. Think there's going to be all sorts of different opportunities for different budgets. So if you got a small business and you want big time exposure, Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com. Speaking of sponsors, speaking of partners, we love working with Cauley Puffs and CauleyPuffs.com. Okay, so they are our presenting sponsor. And listen, bottom line with Cauley Puffs, I have told you about Cauley Puffs since the start of football season, okay? But the bottom line is now it's the new year. You've known about Cauley Puffs. And the big thing, the big conversation, the big question is this. It's a new year. It's a new you. You're trying to get healthy. You need something to put in that little belly of yours that isn't going to make it any bigger. And my friends, that's where Cauley Puffs comes in. These are the new age health food snacks. I've told you their story. Joey, not far from where I live, a family-owned company. He's a football fan just like you and I, was sitting on the couch one day saying, I need to eat something healthier. I need a snack that is healthy but delicious, that I'm going to like, that my kids are going to like. And my friends, he came up with Cauley Puffs that day. These are, again, the new age health food snack that is also delicious. Baked, not fried, avocado oil, no grease, healthy ingredients. But again, the best part is that they taste delicious. By the way, on Wednesday's show, had somebody get in the comments say that they tried Cauley Puffs and said that they loved them. So I appreciate your support, but I need everybody's support on this one. And I need you to check out Cauley Puffs. For more information and to try them out for yourselves, this is what you got to do. Go to CauleyPuffs.com. That's CauleyPuffs.com. CauleyPuffs.com because they are delicious. They are healthy. Also, if you want to try them, you can get them on Amazon.com as well. You may have heard of Amazon. But here's the thing is that, you're on Amazon anyway. You're shopping for God knows what. I don't want to know what's in that cart of yours. but Cauli Puffs are available on Amazon. Throw some in your cart. Trust me, you are going to enjoy them. Trust me, you are going to come back for more. Thank you to Cauli Puffs, an incredible partner of the Aaron Torres Pod. With that said, it is a busy Thursday, almost afternoon. There is no more time to waste, so let's get to the topic of the day. And the topic of the day, listen to me, biggest story in college sports, outside of a college football playoff, maybe the biggest story all year long, certainly the biggest story in college basketball, despite what ESPN and College Game Day will tell you. That's another conversation for another day. But the biggest story, college basketball this weekend, is not Duke Carolina. It's not even a Big East battle, UConn-Marquette. Instead, it is, in my opinion, without a doubt, it is John Calipari's return to Kentucky as the Arkansas Razorbacks head coach. This is a topic and a conversation that we have literally discussed probably since a week or two after John Calipari took the job. I remember doing a segment in June or July of this year when the schedule was announced of what's the crowd going to be like, what's the reaction going to be like, and now it is a conversation that we are having on the national scale. John Calipari's return. Are there going to be boos? Are there going to be cheers? I'm going to tell you what I think in just a minute. But John Calipari was actually asked about this at his coach's show on Tuesday night, gave a long answer, but this was John Calipari's response to the emotion of walking into Rupp Arena as a visitor.
It is that it's going to be Kentucky.
You know, it's walking in that arena, storied arena, and walking in the wrong door, the other door. Seeing my friends the night before, having my friend, dear friends, lifelong friends, but they're Kentucky fans. Their whole life they've been Kentucky fans. Now, I just hope they're neutral, but they are Kentucky fans. We gave our heart and soul. Ellen, was like the mother to those kids. And so, yeah.
So that was John Calipari talking about his return to Rupp Arena on Saturday night. Says there's going to be emotion. And he did say, by the way, in a separate segment that I saw right as we were getting ready to go on air here, that, he expects boos, and that's okay. And also that he's got some thick skin. He's been doing this a while, and he is ready for the boos, and he is ready for whatever. So I think, to me, Calipari is preparing himself. Obviously, never forget there are 3 players on the Arkansas roster that also called Rupp Arena home last season. And so what I want to do now is just talk about the big picture conversation that everybody is having in college basketball right now, which is pretty straightforward. It is, how will Kentucky fans actually react when John Calipari walks through that tunnel, okay? And before we get into it, let me start by saying this, Kentucky fans, okay? Because I know there's going to be a lot of Kentucky fans that watch this. By the way, I would say the same thing if Eric Musselman was returning to Arkansas, or if whoever, it doesn't really matter. I want to make this clear right off the top. There are a lot of media members that are telling you how you should act. Torres ain't going to be one of them, okay? Listen, I think there's way too much lecturing and posturing in the media these days, telling you if you, I don't want to get political, but, you vote for this guy or girl, you're a terrible person, do this, do that. If you don't do this, then you don't care. And I think there's a lot of people this week in the media that are going to say, Kentucky fans, you need to act this way. That's not going to be me. That's not going to be me. What I plan on doing over the next 6-7 minutes is talking about what I think will happen, and then also both sides of the conversation, and frankly, what I would do if I was a Kentucky fan. But again, I'm not. And so if you do the opposite of me, I'm not here to lecture you. I'm not here to say I'm better than you, because I'm not. We're all just people floating around on this big blue marble, trying to get some Cauli Puffs in our belly and call it a day, okay? So let's go ahead and talk about the conversation with John Calipari. And I think what's been interesting, first of all, I think what's been very interesting is kind of the wave and nuance of the conversation, right? Is that if you had asked Kentucky fans at the day that John Calipari left for Arkansas, and you realize, oh, this guy who told us he loves us is leaving after 15 years for a league rival, a league school, I think the 100% response would have been, we hate him, screw him, we're never cheering for that guy again. We hope he loses every single game the rest of his life, okay? That would have been the response the day he left. I think you probably get to the middle to the end of the summer. One, you see Mark Pope. You're happy with what he's doing. You're happy with the energy that he brings. You're happy that he's one of your own. And I think also, and I think we do have to acknowledge this. I'm not telling you how to feel, but I think John Calipari has mostly been positive in everything that he said about Kentucky, how he's handled the program. Remember over the summer that Kentucky TBT team, remember the TBT, the basketball tournament? They made a run and Calipari showed up at their games when they got to the regionals or whatever. So I think the combination of Mark Pope being awesome, Calipari, I don't think he's done anything to necessarily publicly stoke the fire, and maybe I missed something, but I don't think I did. I think it's kind of led to this situation where, maybe it's 50-50 cheer versus boo by the beginning of the season. And then I think you get to the season and you realize two things. Is one, if you're a Kentucky fan, we got the right coach, 5 wins over ranked teams. And I also think Calipari's struggling. So all of that plays into the fact that I think if you had asked Kentucky fans start of the season, even maybe a week ago, 2 weeks ago, they'd say, listen, we support Coach Cal. We root for him in every game except for the game at Rupp Arena. But I'll also say this. Now that it's game week, I have seen the narrative shift a little bit. And I think part of it is some of the media that maybe doesn't like Calipari is stoking some fires. But I think it has been like, oh, wait a second. It's game week now. It's time to go kick some butt and take some names. And so it's been interesting to kind of follow the narrative and follow the conversation. Now, in terms of what you should, again, we don't use should. I'm not telling anybody what they should do. I think it's interesting to look at it from both sides because I've seen this conversation in favor of booing John Calipari. The conversation, it's pretty straightforward. Hey, we boo everybody that is in an opposing jersey and an opposing sideline in Rupp Arena. We boo Bruce Pearl when he's the Auburn head coach. We boo Nate Oates when he's the Alabama head coach. We boo Rick Barnes when he's the Tennessee head coach. And we're going to boo the crap out of John Calipari. And so I think that's a very logical argument. I think that applies to every sports fan for every team everywhere in America. UConn's going to Marquette on Saturday night. I don't expect Marquette fans to cheer Dan Hurley. Now, Dan Hurley didn't bring Marquette a championship, but you get the point. But I think that's a totally logical argument. If you say, hey, we boo everybody, and there's going to be a day where, the 2012 national championship team gets honored or whatever, and John Calipari is going to be in that building, we'll cheer him that day. But the day to cheer him ain't this one. So that's one perspective. I respect the perspective. If you just say, we boo everybody, I'm sorry, suck it up, Buttercup, deal with it. I totally get it. I'd add, who else gets it? John Calipari actually gets it because, John Calipari, I think, has said, again, I expect to be booed. I expect to this. I expect to that. But I think there's another perspective as well. By the way, producer Matt, flag any comments. Maybe we get to some interesting comments before we get to the John Nabors interview. But okay, here's the other perspective. The other perspective, and I think it's a totally fair perspective as well, is the argument of, listen, we know that we boo every other coach. We boo Rick Barnes. We boo Bruce Pearl. By the way, saying boo Bruce Pearl is a very hard thing to say fast, especially when it's 8:19 Pacific time here and my brain is moving a million miles an hour because I drank too much coffee this morning. But again, we boo Rick Barnes. We boo Nate Oates. We boo Bruce Pearl. And Calipari is going to be no different. I do think there is the counter to that, which is, yeah, but Bruce Pearl, Rick Barnes, Nate Oates, they never brought you a national championship. They didn't hang banner number 8 up in Rupp Arena. They didn't bring you 4 Final Fours, multiple SEC titles. And as disappointing as the Calipari season ended, the counter to that is, you know what? He did bring us a lot of good memories. I'm going to cheer for him when he is introduced as the former Kentucky head coach or the current Arkansas head coach that did, in fact, bring me a national championship, did, in fact, bring me 4 Final Fours. I think the other variable, and by the way, I think this is where the comparison to when Rick Pitino returned as the Louisville head coach, which we'll get into in a minute. I think the other variable that I don't think enough people have talked about, but I do think it's become a talking point this week, why I would consider cheering for John Calipari is because he actually did you the ultimate favor as the Kentucky basketball program by leaving when he did last offseason. And this was something we talked about all offseason when every time that Arkansas did something good, people would say, oh, Calipari's washed. It doesn't matter, this and that. I think the important thing to note is, and I keep going back to this, he did Kentucky fans a favor. And I remember, listen, by the way, people say, oh, Torres, you always defend Calipari. You're worse than, that bald guy at ESPN. I won't name names, but we all know who they are. Yes, I've largely been a Calipari critic. You can find the tweet from the night that they lost to Oakland where I said point blank, I said, we can't keep doing this. Calipari has to go. If Calipari cares about Kentucky and its fans, then he should retire today. I said that. I tweeted it. And so I think all of these variables are true, but why it would be hard for me, and I'm not telling you how to act, why it would be hard for me is because of the fact, not that he brought you a national championship, not that he brought you 4 Final Fours, not that he brought you some of your great memories as a Kentucky fan. You know why it'd be hard for me to boom? Because he ultimately did you the favor. By the time that Oakland game went final, listen, I don't have it. There's no official way to tally this. I am pretty sure 95 to 99.99999% of the fan base was ready to move on and ready to have a new coach. And I said at the time, if Calipari cares about Kentucky the way he says he does, he should resign. Now, instead, he found another job. And I said at the time, I don't criticize Arkansas for hiring him if he still wants to coach. But why it'd be hard for me to boo John Calipari? He did. He made the ultimate sacrifice to Kentucky, which was he went out the side door. And it may not have been pretty. It may not have felt great at the time. But what did he do? He saved you somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 to $40 million in buyout money that you no longer had to worry about. You could just focus on, hey, who's our next head coach? Let's give him every resource needed to succeed. Let's give him a pool to put together a great coaching staff. Let's give him a pool to put together a great NIL budget. And I know NIL isn't technically yet funded by the schools, but all of the money that went to the buyout instead, in my opinion, would have gone to, buying John Calipari out. And so I think that to me is the ultimate sacrifice, whether it was intentional, whether it was not intentional. I think it was the ultimate sacrifice to John Calipari, which is basically straightforward is, hey, I care about this team. I care about this program. And the ultimate sacrifice I can make is by, bailing right now and saving Kentucky $40 million, whatever it was. And so that is why I've always had a hard time thinking that anybody should hate John Calipari. He did you the biggest favor he could. You went out, you got Mark Pope, you gave him a huge budget for the coaching staff, and all of that money would have gone to buying him out if you had to fire him. Now, again, I think in a perfect world, I don't think he wanted to go to an SEC rival when he left. But I think in a perfect world, he leaves for another job. It's like a Tubby Smith situation. Tubby Smith went to the Big Ten where you're not seeing him every day, if at all. And also, I'd say really quick, because I want to get to some other stuff, John Nabors, et cetera. But, I think that's the other conversation that has to be discussed as well. Because I've seen a lot of we booed Rick Pitino. Why wouldn't we boo this guy? Again, you do what you want. My counter to that, though, is Rick Pitino, when he left, there were 0.0% of Kentucky fans that actually wanted him to go. They understood why he left. It's the Boston Celtics. He's the coach and the general manager. He gets to, pursue the NBA at the highest level, but they were bummed. And when he comes back 5 years later as the Louisville head coach. It's a lot different than Calipari leaving because of the fact that basically everybody wanted him out, and he ends up saving the school $40 to $50 million, whatever it was. I think I said 30 to 40. Now it's 40 to 50, but you get the point. Probably $30 to $40 million. He saved them $30 to $40 million that they didn't have to pay him buyout money. So we'll see what happens. Kentucky fans, I know that some people in the chat probably will be there on Saturday night. You do what you got to do. Not here to criticize, not here to judge, not here to do anything other than say, I am going to enjoy this. I was actually supposed to be at Rupp Arena. Some stuff came up. By the way, maybe it's for the best that I'm not, because obviously it could be an ugly game. We'll actually preview the game here in just a little bit. But that's kind of my big takeaway. The other thing is, so far Kentucky's won the breakup. I mean, obviously it's going well for Mark Pope, not nearly as much for the Arkansas Razorbacks. So yeah, a lot of emotion on Saturday night. And I am not here to tell Kentucky fans whether it should be positive emotion or negative emotion push towards John Calipari. Producer Matt, before we get to John Nabors, do we have any questions, comments, interviews, things of that nature? I don't know why I said interviews, but anything interesting? Andrew, Cauley Puffs are legit Torres. I don't know if you could screenshot that, Producer Matt, but let's get that to our people at Cauley Puffs because I know they will appreciate it. Thank you for your support, Andrew. Again, CauleyPuffs.com. You can get them on Amazon as well. They are delicious and healthy. I can promise you that. Joey is going to love seeing that. Thank you, Andrew. UK Till I Die says, I think it will be a little bit of a mix, but who knows? I think whatever Pope does, if he started an ovation, I think BBN may follow suit just out of respect for Pope. One thing I will say, listen, I think Pope has handled everything literally about as well as you can. I mean, even over the summer, you know, he would make comments like, oh, I saw Coach Cal on the AAU circuit, and Coach Cal said anything I need, he is available for me. So much credit to Mark Pope. I can't give him enough credit because he's handled it well. You know, it's Thursday morning as we record. I know he'll probably have a Friday media availability. Some of you will probably listen to this after his media availability. So I don't know what he's going to say, but my guess is he's handled everything with class. And my guess is he's probably going to handle this with he will handle this with class. My guess is he's going to say probably what I said. Kentucky fans, you do what you want, but I appreciate what John Calipari has done. UK Till I Die. I think it's a great point. Is Pope, you know, you could say whatever you want about him, but he has handled everything the right way. And I know he'll have some positive things to say about Calipari as well. Any other quick questions before we get to John Calipari? Nobody says, I think boos will be super loud when the announcer says Arkansas coach John Calipari. I mean, I think the boos will be louder than the cheers because they are by nature. I will say, like I said, I think there's certain people in the media, you know, that don't like John Calipari that have done a good job of reminding Kentucky fans that it is okay to boo. So like I said, if you had asked me, you know, 10 days ago, I would have said probably 60-40 boos. My guess is now it's probably going to be a little bit closer, or 60-40 cheers. My guess is probably closer to like 25-75, 30-70 cheers versus boos. So, Cheesy Skull, who is a Arkansas fan, says the question is, how would UK fans react if Arkansas actually wins? Well, I'll tell you what, Cheesy Skull, I have a perfect person to answer that. John Nabors from Inside Arkansas. He covers this team daily. He's been on this show before. I was on his show last week talking about the state of Arkansas basketball. John Nabors is going to join us, and we're going to talk about the state of Arkansas basketball. We are going to talk about just how does the fan base feel about Calipari. I mean, you know, it's different, you know, when the team is struggling, when you've been there 15 years versus when you've been there less than a year. And oh, by the way, we did talk about John Calipari. What if he actually walks into Rupp Arena and gets the win on Saturday? Let's take a quick break. We'll come back with John Nabors. Stay tuned, by the way, on the backside of that interview. I will give you my preview and picks for this game, for basically every game all weekend long. UConn-Marquette, Florida, Tennessee, on and on. Duke, Carolina. We'll take a quick break. John Nabors from Inside Arkansas joins us next. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute, but before we do, many of you ask me all the time, Torres, what can I do to help support the show? You give me hours and hours and hours of content every single week. What can I do to help you? Well, I'll tell you what, do me a quick favor. Check out the Aaron Torres Media merchandise store for all of your team-specific shirts, hats, and more, all available at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. A lot of you wondering, Torres, what can I get in that merch store? Well, first of all, we got our brand new Hope and Pope Kentucky basketball t-shirts. That's right. Mark Pope has arrived. He is here to save the day. Get your Hope and Pope t-shirts there. Also, Arkansas fans, the Big Pig Invasion is here. You can get your tees there. Basketball School Alabama shirts. Mora Hurley 2024 UConn shirts for your tailgates at Rentschler Field, your games at the XL Center or Gamble. And oh, by the way, your Mike effing Woodson gear for Indiana. If you love football, we got you covered too. We got more Dion shirts and hats than we even know what to do with. The freeze warning has hit the plains. Auburn fans, grab your freeze warning tees now. And of course, our new era, new rules shirt applies to Nebraska football and its incredible fan base. We have more coming for the fall, plenty in stock right now. So make sure to check out the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. And you can always hit me up with any questions. Aaron Torres Podcast. All right, joining me via Zoom, it's my old buddy. You can hear him every single day inside Arkansas. You can hear him on the Lockdown Razorbacks podcast. Had him on during the summer. Everyone was, what do they say, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready for the season ahead. Things haven't gone quite to plan, but guess what? Can change a lot of things, a lot of narratives on Saturday. John Nabors is joining me. My man, what's going on? How you doing, bud?
No, just slipping into the seventh circle of hell pretty much each and every day. It's going good. There's just one of them things where, you put hope. You put hope in a team and hope in a program. And what was it from, I believe, Shawshank Redemption?
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, hope is a good thing, perhaps the best of things, and good things never die. Well, I think a lot of people are just hoping that the season comes to an end for Arkansas quickly because it did not go according to plan, and it's been a rough one. But still a lot of games left, though. Still a lot of games.
There's no sandy beach where you can disappear to, unfortunately, at this time. But all right, so let's get into it. Arkansas traveling to Kentucky. And listen, this is what we're going to talk about, right? I mean, I still think it's a wildly anticipated game. I know Arkansas is struggling. It is worth noting we are recording before Kentucky plays Tennessee, but Kentucky is not going to have Lamont Butler, so there's actually a reasonable chance that Kentucky enters on a 3-game losing streak. Let me start with this, okay? So there's going to be a lot of people that aren't Arkansas fans that listen to this pod. I do want to ask you this: so there's obviously a lot of negativity, right? But I think so much of it, because of the way things ended at Kentucky, it's all centered towards Cal, right? And you see pictures of Bud Walton Arena or games, whatever. And what you have told me, what, our buddy Curtis Wilkerson, who works for you, has told me is like, dude, it's so much bigger than just a 10-game stretch for the basketball program. So for people that don't follow Arkansas on a day-to-day basis, and for the people that do follow Arkansas, I apologize that we're going here, but like what is going on with this athletic department? Because everything that you tell me, et cetera, this isn't a John Calipari thing. This isn't a Arkansas is 1-5 or 1-6 in the SEC thing. It's so much bigger, and I think it adds context to why people see just some frustration, from the Hogs fans and stuff.
Yeah, I've felt this way for a while, even before the Razorback basketball season started, that there just seems to be a growing disconnect from the common Razorback fan to the athletic department in general. Arkansas is a unique place, and for those of you who are listening, you may say that's cliche to say, but no, it truly is, because it's the only school really, besides maybe like a Nebraska, that has one major school in it. And even Nebraska, I guess, has Creighton. Yeah.
What about Connecticut, dude? Come on, University of Connecticut, man.
Well, listen, and guess what? Y'all are really good in the basketball side of things too, and it's a big deal. But you're up in the Northeast; it's all the same to me up there, anyways. But yeah, it's in, at least in Arkansas. There's no other major school. There's no pro team. There's nothing within. I think the closest Power 4 campus is Stillwater, and that's 2.5-3 hours away. So it's it. Arkansas is it. And that's why fans have always taken it as kind of their own personal pride that they've had, because when the Razorbacks are good, the state's good. The economy's better. I mean, everything just really revolves, as weird as it is to say, and maybe as lame as it is to say, but a lot of it revolves around the success of the Razorbacks and what attention gets brought into, because we know sports can really bring a lot of attention into things that you never heard of. I would have never even known that Gonzaga was a school if it wasn't for the NCAA tournament. There's just a lot of that. But over time, there's just been a lot of that's been going on. I think the football side of things, the Sam Pittman era really becoming boring is the best way to put it, of not good. They were a little bit better this year, but still not great. Should have been better, but yet he still gets a 6th year, heading into a 6th year where the schedule gets tougher. Fans wanted to change after a year ago. They wanted to change again this year, and it didn't happen. And then the Cal element was still shocking. I mean, it was the most incredible college basketball story there was, of him coming to Arkansas, and there was excitement surrounding it. But even leading up into it, I think fans got so used to the way Eric Musselman marketed himself and marketed the school and like had fun with fans. And, like Muss would be out there in Razorback baseball games in the hog pen waving a flag in front of him. I mean,
he sure
and,
was.
and it's no shot at Cal. It's just how Muss is. Most coaches are probably not like that. But I think fans kind of got spoiled with that. And then they're kind of like, we don't know anything about these players. We don't get to hear from them from the media side. They never do press conferences. Cal very seldom does press conferences. It just didn't seem like there was a way to get to know each other. And when the team started struggling a lot, it really took a turn of like, usually if you know somebody and they're struggling, you're more apt to defend them.
Of course.
But if you don't know them and you don't feel connected to them, when they start struggling, you become resentful. Because now it becomes more of, it's not you in Arkansas. It's you're taking my Arkansas team and you're making them bad. So I just think that there's just been a lot of intricacies, and I could go on and on about this, building up and compiling to really make Razorback fans feel like there's just a lot of uncomfortable tension within the state and the athletic program that hasn't been there before.
Yeah, it was interesting. I had DJ Wagner on this show, on my show in the preseason, and that was a lot of the reception was like, we just haven't heard from him. And DJ's a great kid, and we're excited to watch him, and we just didn't know a lot about him other than what we read and we heard on shows like yours, like mine, whatever. I actually think that leads, in a sort of negative way into a perfect, kind of follow-up there, which is, and this is something I actually don't know, is how do people in Arkansas feel about Cal, like right now? And because I think there's two sides that I see, which is I don't think Cal's done anything wrong to make people dislike him. I think certainly if the team was, I think they're 12-8 or something like that right now. I think if they were, 18-2 would be a different conversation. But I bring it up because on the one hand, I don't think Cal's necessarily done anything wrong. But I guess my counterpoint to that would be he doesn't have the built-up goodwill either. And that's kind of what I was thinking about. And I've used this example a million times on my show, John, but I remember I live in L.A., and I remember when LeBron got to L.A. and one of his first press conferences, people were kind of like, hey, one of the reporters like, well, what do you think, your legacy would mean if you win a championship with the Lakers? And LeBron kind of looked at the camera and was like, my legacy's built. Like I remember thinking at the time, like, this guy doesn't get it. Like, people in LA could not care less what you did in Cleveland, Miami, whatever. You're a Laker now, and it's different. And I don't think Cal has had that moment, or at least not that I've perceived that he's said something wrong or done something wrong. But also to your point, like, it's like, even at Kentucky, it's like, well, people might be mad at him, but damn, that dude won us a natty about 10 years ago, and he made a bunch of Final Fours. So anyway, I'm stealing the spotlight from you. You're the guest. So let me just like, how do people feel about Cal? And it might not even be negative. It might be, but it's just like, I'm just curious because hasn't done anything wrong. But to your point, I don't necessarily feel like he's done a lot to like super ingratiate goodwill either.
And he hasn't. And that's what makes it tough. And again, I want people to be clear. I'm not blaming Cal. I'm not saying Cal just doing this wrong and this wrong. It's not that. I'm just saying that coaches are different. Personalities are different. And I kept making the comparison that when Cal was coming into Arkansas didn't hire a college basketball coach. They hired a celebrity that just happens to be a college basketball coach. And that does not exist in Arkansas. I love my state. I love it here. But we don't have people like him here in Arkansas. Like the biggest personalities and the biggest iconic legend people from Arkansas, they don't all live here still. Like Jerry Jones lives in Dallas. Bill Clinton doesn't still live here. John Daly does, but he's also elsewhere. Like just the big names that you have. But John Calipari is a guy who walked in accomplishing literally everything that you could accomplish, and it's such a new thing. Arkansas, like when they hired Muss, it was a great hire. Everyone was pumped up and excited about it. He was coming from Nevada. It wasn't like he was coming from some blue-blooded program or he won a national championship already. So there was still some energy to be there. Same thing with most coaches that they've hired. But Cal's the first one where it's like, holy crap. Like this guy is like, what else he's the greatest in the league right now. He's got the best resume that you could ever have. What can we expect? And I don't think anyone expected this. And so people feel, at least in my opinion, they feel still okay with Cal. There's nobody that's saying Cal needs to be fired. Cal sucks. He's washed, anything. And I think maybe that is a defense mechanism a lot of Razorback fans have because that's all they've heard from Kentucky fans for months is just he's washed, he sucks, he's no good. So maybe they're just trying to not let them be right and not admit it. But I think it's also like, okay, Cal, this is your one bad year. You know, like this is it. You know, you try to risk. You sign less players, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Don't do it again. And it better not be like this again. And I think that that's how people are going to be. And it's so even in next year they have Arkansas now officially 2 McDonald's All-Americans coming in next year. You know, they got the NIL. You know, they're going to have talent. But if Cal has another year next year like this year and the way that it's gone, Razorback fans are going to be like, get this guy out now because there's no reason for it. It's one thing to be Razorback fans were hoping for greatness, obviously, winning a championship. That's what everyone hopes for. But I think Razorback fans would have still been like, okay, go to the tournament. But to be the second worst, maybe worse, one of the worst teams in the SEC this year was not on anyone's radar. Can't happen again. And so a lot of that goodwill is done. Next year has to be the time where he turns it around and gets back to the Cal that everyone's expecting him to be.
Yeah, and this is the part where I do the cliche. Yes, I spent all summer truly, and it wasn't like, because now everyone's like, oh, Torres, you were just doing it for clicks, and I'm like, no, I actually wasn't. I actually liked how the pieces fit together, and I thought the team was going to be really good. I didn't think they were going to win the SEC. I thought that was Alabama all along, but I thought they'd finish top 3, top 4. They'd get a 5, somewhere between like a 3 and a 5 seed, and they'd be, they'd enter the tournament like everybody else. And so that was actually going to be my next question, dude. You're leading me right into all my not bulletin board material because that sounds negative, but Torres did some prep work for this one because this is the big one. Had Bruce Pearl earlier in the week, and then I got John Nabors. It's like
all that. I was like, okay, follow that up.
That's like going from John Calipari to John Calipari. It's just like you got to be prepared, ready to go. So that was actually going to be my next question, though. You're a ball knower, you know ball. So I guess that was my question was, and again, I say this is somebody who looked at this team on paper in May or June or whenever it all came together and said, I think that's a top 15 team that could compete for a Final Four. You could be honest. What percentage do you think, just your personal opinion, and then maybe you could share the Razorback perspective of maybe just these pieces didn't fit as well as we thought? And it is worth noting, by the way, their best and probably most important players now out for the year. So like that throws a wrinkle in things as well. But how much of it do you think is just bad pieces? And how much are you genuinely worried, like, oh, man, maybe we just, maybe this guy just is, he's on the tail end of his career?
I think, honestly, this roster that he put together was a good idea in theory. But
and really quick, for people who don't know, Arkansas fans know, but maybe a Kentucky fan, maybe somebody else listening. What do you take? Nine scholarship players, right? And when I say scholarship, because Arkansas, chirping at me, we have more players on scholarship. He basically took 9 playable players and then just took and basically said, this is what we're rolling with. And John, I'll be very quick on this. I want to get it back to you. He did it because last year he had 11 players at Kentucky. Throughout the entire season, he never had a fully healthy roster. This guy's hurt. This guy comes back. That guy gets hurt. Then all of a sudden the tournament starts and he's got 11 healthy players and he didn't know what to do with it. So the floor is yours. That was, I think, where you were going with the big miscue. And I just wanted for people to understand this. There was a reason that he did it. It wasn't, hey, at 65 years old, I'm just going to start rolling the dice and seeing what happens. But I cut you off. And again, the question for people who forget because Torres rambles too much is basically like, what percentage is it just bad pieces versus what is it might just, it might just be who he is at this point?
Well, I think that it was in the time, it made sense to me. Like I think it made sense to a lot of people. It wasn't, and anybody that said like that's a stupid idea, it was maybe just trying to be condescending or trying to be that guy. But I got what he was trying to go for, and I remember very vividly him making the remark when kind of pushed back a little bit. He's like, "Well," because somebody said, "Hey, what if one of those players gets injured? Like what are you going to do?" And his response was, well, hey, if your best player gets injured, it doesn't matter if you have 12 guys on scholarship. Like you're going to have a hit. And so I think in theory it made sense. And I think it also helped get a much more talented player with a better budget for the NIL, where it's like, hey, I can spend $2 million or just we'll throw averages out there, $1.5 million per player on 9 players. Or do I have to spend $1 million on average on 11, 12 players? So it made sense in the time, but that's where I look at it as like you took the wrong risk. I think if Cal would have stuck with the way he kind of wanted it to be in his first year and normally had done it, And then if that didn't work out, go to the next year, it would be a little different. But this year, it's just like starting this badly, and this is the first impression people get, makes it really rough. So I think that he meant good, and I think that he had the right idea, but the execution of it, and also dealing with the fact that there have been injuries. Like Jonas Adu, he's still not healthy. That guy has been really bad for Arkansas. He has not been healthy, and he hasn't been healthy really even in the offseason. Nelly Davis, kind of the same thing. Not making excuses, but between that, Trevin Brazil's dealt with injury. Big Z dealt with injury. You had Adu Thiero was sick for a week or two. Now Boogie Flan's out for the year. So it's just like you can't manage it that way. It's bad luck. Now, if this team was fully healthy throughout the entire offseason, playing together, working together, and they were fully healthy now, would this team be like undefeated or anything? No. But I feel confident that they would be an NCAA tournament team at least. I feel like they would be at minimum that. And that's where it was a mistake that has snowballed and has really made matters a lot worse. Because this is the thing I always get with Kentucky fans. And they talk about Cal's awful and everything. And, oh, you thought Cal was not washed. No, what I think most Razorback fans thought is that Cal would come in and do what he did at Kentucky the past 3 seasons, which is go 14-4, 12-6, and 13-5 in the SEC.
Thank you.
Like that's all people were like. Arkansas, they weren't saying, oh, 5 in a row national championships, here we come. I think people had a reasonable expectation that he would do at Arkansas what he would and had done at Kentucky the past few years. Because at Arkansas, he had better NIL budget. He has a passionate fan base. He has all the abilities and all the reasons to win. He got to hire his staff the way he wanted it to. I mean, he was set up for success. And that's what fans expected. That's what fans wanted. And it couldn't be further from it. So that is what it comes down to. It's not just that Arkansas is struggling. It's just, I don't think anyone in any dreamed, even the people that hated Cal the most, I don't think anyone would have dreamed in a million years that he would miss the NCAA tournament in his first year at Arkansas with this team. But that's exactly what's going to end up happening.
Well, and that's what I keep defaulting to when people yell at me and, oh, Torres, you did. It's like, they did finish second in the toughest SEC that has ever existed a year ago. Now, this year's tougher, but last year was the toughest. We all acknowledged at the time that was the best SEC that ever existed. They finished in second place, won it, Tennessee the final day of the regular season, whatever. And that kind of, leads into my next question. You kind of hit on it earlier, is that this year's kind of a gimme year. We're going to give him a pass, everything. How much just big picture do you think he has? And then how much big picture time do you think he has if things don't go well? And it's tough because, I was watching, and I did this segment on my show, and I got crushed by Arkansas fans. Oh, you're using our downfall to, whatever. And then it was like somebody wrote an article that's saying I was demanding his retirement, and I was like, I don't think that's what I said. All I said was he doesn't look very like he's having very much fun right now. And I said at 60, I'll tell you, John Nabors, at 65 years old, if I ain't having fun what I'm doing, and I got $100 million in the bank like John Calipari does. You better, I better, whatever. So the point I'm trying to make is like, how much, if things like it's from his perspective as a guy that's around him every day, but then also from the Arkansas, like what is the runway here? I mean, let's say you get next year, you're significantly improved to the point of you're a tournament team, but you're not, like you said, vintage old school Cal when the SEC was a 3-bid league and you're going 17-1 in the league or whatever. But just big picture, like how long do you think this goes on? And I guess I would even ask, like, do you think he doesn't appear to be having fun, but nobody has fun when you lose, so it's a little bit tough. So I don't know. I just threw like 7 things at you without really even stating a question, but I'll just kind of let you take it from here.
No, I'm good at that. Don't worry. No, it's funny because he's here for a 5-year contract is what he originally signed. And I think most Razorback fans are good with 5 years. Like 5 years seems reasonable. And I think that's what the hope is. And that's assuming, though, that he gets this thing back on track. That's why this year is such a crucial year of getting behind the 8 ball. Because now you don't have, like you mentioned, the goodwill, the good grace, the benefit of the doubt. You don't have that anymore. I kind of chalk it up to what Sam Pittman went through a little bit. Sam Pittman came in with a terrible situation after Chad Morris. First year, the COVID year, when there was 10 SEC games, he won 3. It was kind of a weird year, but still much better. But then his next year, he goes 9-4. and everyone's just singing the praises of Sam Pittman, how awesome he is. Everyone's loved, and he brings a ton of talent the next year, the transfer portal. It's great, but then he goes 6-6, and then 4-8, and then 6-6 again. The worst thing that ever happened to Sam Pittman was that year 2, because it set that bar, that expectation so high. And now you have kind of the opposite right now with Cal, where the bar was extremely high, and now he's down here already. Like, there was no year to establish it. There was no year to make up for it. It's do or die year 2. And when I say do or die in year 2, I'm talking about not just making the NCAA tournament, but making it to the second weekend type of thing. Because with the amount of talent and, again, NIL and support, there is zero excuse and zero reason for Cal to miss the NCAA tournament. When you get to the tournament, we all know it's a crapshoot, man. You know, it's tough. It's hard to win. We all know that. But you can't go anywhere if you can't make it at all. Like, you have to make the Arkansas is a program, and I've said this many times. Is Arkansas a blue-blooded basketball program like Kansas, Duke, North Carolina? No. But they are a program that should never miss the NCAA tournament under any circumstance. They are that type of basketball program. And for Cal to have this year, I hate to say it, Aaron, but I think last year's Arkansas and Eric Musselman team beats this team, as crazy as that is. And that team was bad, very bad. Players that still play right now are doing well, but I thought that was a disaster, and I thought that'd be the worst it would ever be. I think last year's team smokes this year's team. That's how bad it is right now.
I hadn't really broken down. I haven't done the depth chart analysis of L. Ellis versus DJ Wagner, but yeah, no, it was bad last year, and I'm disappointed. Like I said, I mean, everybody is. It goes without saying, but let's look. I guess we should look a little ahead to Saturday. I mean, I've been like Mr. Negativity. Hey, tell me all the reasons that you're miserable right now. But so first of all, you're going down to Lexington, so we're recording before your trip. Most people will probably hear this on Thursday, but I know people have been, a little rough and tumble with you on social media, but what are you expecting just the atmosphere to be down there when you get there, and just the atmosphere in general for the game? Again, to reiterate for people who are maybe catching this segment, this interview mid-segment, we're recording before John leaves for Lexington. We're recording before Kentucky plays at Tennessee on Tuesday night. So a few things can change, but obviously the anticipation I don't think is going anywhere.
No, and I'm kind of pissed off about that, to be honest.
Me
because
too.
It's like when the schedule came out of the SEC schedule, one, I was pissed off that Arkansas and Kentucky only played once. I think that was a massive mistake by the SEC. I have no idea who was in charge, but I don't know who thought that was an okay idea. You have 2 dynamite must-watch games right there on TV, and you chose to do it one time. Makes no sense. But I will say it does make sense to have the one game in Rupp. Like, that's what's going to do it. But I booked the trip to Lexington the day that the SEC schedule dropped, because I was expecting these 2 teams are going to be NCAA tournament teams, potentially top 20, top 15 teams. I thought all of those things were going to happen. And now that's not. Like, it's just completely, it's still there, but because here's the deal. You mentioned we're recording this before Kentucky and Tennessee play. Assuming that Tennessee wins, Kentucky's been on a 3-game losing streak going in that game. Sub 500. Like, it's still going to be angry, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't have the same luster. So it'll be heated, but it just could have been so much better, AT. It could have been so much better.
Well, I was supposed to go too, and some things popped up here at the last minute, and it kind of actually worked out nicely that it didn't, for that exact reason. And here's the other thing too, and again, I feel like I'm just being Mr. Negative Arkansas guy, but like, it would be one thing if just Kentucky's banged up and they're on a little bit of a losing streak, but Arkansas is awesome, and then it's like, oh crap, we're gonna boo the crap out of them, and that's obviously not what it is at all. We don't need to reiterate that, but I'll tell you what, we could go ahead and wrap here. You've been so gracious with your time. Let's wrap on a negative, though. Go ahead. What are you going to say?
I'm just going to say one quick thing about that, though. One quick thing. I believe that this trip and this thing in Lexington is going to be obviously lively and insane. However, there's zero pressure on the Razorbacks. Zero. The pressure is on Kentucky. The pressure is a little bit on Cal, because he wants to win. He wants to prove everybody wrong. The most pressure is on Mark Pope.
Great call. 100%.
And so as a Razorback fan, and I think most Razorback fans are going in, it'd be different if the circumstances were different, obviously, but fans are going in there like, hey, what do we have to lose? If Kentucky beats Arkansas, they're a better team. They're supposed to. Arkansas doesn't have one of their best players. It's in Rupp Arena. Hey, it's supposed to. But if Cal wins, if Arkansas wins that game, I'm going to be curious to see what it looks like there in Lexington, because then you're talking about potentially Kentucky dropping 2 games below 500 and Arkansas having 2 SEC wins on the year against Georgia and against Kentucky and Rupp Arena. I'm not going to predict it, but my point is no pressure on the Razorbacks, no pressure on the Razorback players, no pressure on the team. Mark Pope has the most pressure on him. And if he doesn't win that game, I'm just saying.
No, you're right.
Some of those fans may have to cope with Pope.
Oh, I see what you did there. No, and I'll say real quick, we'll let you out of here in a couple minutes. But that is, first of all, it was funny. I was listening to, just some Kentucky commentary after the Vandy game. And again, there's an understanding that guys are hurt, whatever. But there was the conversation of, coming into this week, you're playing at Tennessee. That is an incredible win if you can get it for your resume, blah, blah, blah. And it's which win would you rather have? Because even an Arkansas loss on just a sheet of paper, it's actually not a bad loss. It's probably a Q2 loss at home. It's whatever. People have them, whatever. You beat Tennessee at Tennessee. That's one of the best wins you could have in college basketball. And everybody to a man was like, yeah, I'll take losing by 30 in Knoxville because we cannot lose that game at Arkansas. Or to Arkansas, at home. So, that was going to be kind of my last question is what do you think happens if Arkansas pulls off the upset? But I will tell you, I think everyone's given the benefit of the doubt. Alabama's really good. That's who you lost to a few weeks ago. Vandy, okay. Everybody's banged up. Can't lose. By the way, let me ask you this. Do you think that could be the galvanizing thing for if Arkansas won, not just because it's Kentucky, whatever, but I feel like that would be the galvanizing thing where it would be Cal's our guy now. We love him. You know what I mean? Where it's just you've wanted to defend him, but he hasn't given you a ton of reason to, but this is the one where it's these crazy, and Calipari called him crazy. So I'm not calling him crazy, but these people have been bullying our coach for 6 months now. And guess who that's my coach right there. That's my coach. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think there'd be an element to that. But because of how Big Blue Nation in Kentucky has, addressed and looked at Arkansas, it's been good for the rivalry. No doubt. I keep saying that. And, I've said some stuff about Kentucky and about Big Blue Nation. Just people know it's all in fun, although people take it very seriously sometimes. But to me, it would be so much if Cal won that game. This is just my opinion as a Razorback fan growing up and all of that. It would just kind of be a sit back and swish your drink around and take a sip and just be like, okay, all right. It would be fun. And but it'd be more of I look at it as this is Cal versus Kentucky.
Yep.
It's not Arkansas versus Kentucky. It is a little bit, but this is Cal versus Kentucky. And Cal's on your team though. He's your guy, but it's not about Arkansas because these Kentucky fans would be the same way if he went to Vanderbilt or, any place in the SEC. So it's about Cal versus Kentucky. And I think Arkansas fans are just looking at it as that's our guy. We're rooting for him. We're massaging his shoulders in the corner of the ring, making sure, hey, go get him, Tiger. And then if they win, and if he pulls off the upset, after all that smack talk, after all that stuff getting thrown his way, I think Razorback fans, again, just going to sit back and be like, it sucks to suck, man. Sorry about that. Hopefully you guys can make the tournament this year. You guys are in jeopardy. Just kind of have some fun with it. But Razorback fans will be appreciative, but then part of it will be okay, dude, so what the crap? You couldn't beat Oklahoma at home, but you can go on the road and beat Kentucky and Rupp. There'll be that element too.
I'm not claiming I know your fan base. I think it would be a pretty big rallying point, at least for one game. I don't even know who you have after Kentucky. You could, get blown out by Auburn or something. Then it's all that goodwill disappears in a week. But All right, John Nabors, Inside Arkansas, also Inside Arkansas and Locked On the Razorbacks podcast. Anything else to add? Again, we went a little negative. Anything, listen, I'll tell you this. I was hosting Fox Sports Radio when the Bills melted down against the Chiefs, and I said, I don't want to be negative. And my co-host Ephraim Salam said, you're not negative if it's the truth. So I don't think I was that negative. I think I was just being realistic. But anything else you want to wrap on? Anything positive? Is there, anything going on in your life that you just you're excited about? I mean, you did sign 2 McDonald's All-Americans, so you got that going for you. Baseball's not far away. How's the squad looking this year? Are we looking good, or how are we looking?
I mean, yeah, they're going to be good, but can they win in the postseason? That's the key.
Oh, God, not this again. Come on. We just got off that topic.
Yeah, I know. It's just the facts, man. It's just when you have that expectation, you win every year, and you're a national seed the past 2 seasons, and you got bounced in your own home regional. So, and I think it makes it exponentially worse seeing other SEC schools, especially your old protege and future Razorback head coach, Tony Vitello at Tennessee, winning a title.
Future Razorbacks coach.
Yeah.
What was my favorite, and you'll appreciate this. So I have to defend my coach too, which is Dan Hurley. And I had all these Tennessee fans like, I would never want that guy to coach my team. I'm like, didn't Tony Vitello take a swing at Dave Van Horn like a few years ago? Did I forget that? Am I making that up in my head? Because I'm pretty sure they were chest to chest, ready to throw bows. So,
dude, it's a classic fan base, especially in the SEC. You hate him because he's not yours. I've said this many times about Eric Musselman. I would have hated that man if he was not the Arkansas coach. Sure. I would have wanted to destroy him, but he's my coach. So I love him, and he won, and I didn't care. Same thing with Hurley, I'm sure with you. And I'd be the same way. If Hurley became the Arkansas Razorback head coach next, I'd be pumped and excited. And anybody would be like, there's just no room for that in the game. Shut up. Like, just go win. That's what I care about. I want winners. I don't care about, is he going to babysit my kids? Like, no, I want to win. So that's such a dumb thing. But yeah, don't let anyone fool you. Everybody likes to win. I don't care if he's a jerk. I don't care if he's an angel. Just win. That's all I care about.
I was going to say, maybe we're like 12 years away from doing the Dan Hurley has accepted the Arkansas job podcast because he was forced out at UConn, and we got a silver lining. But no, I'm kidding, man. Anything else you want to add on this? I will say I'm still excited. I still think it was a whiff that College Game Day isn't there. It feels less significant now that both teams are struggling. And last thoughts, because I know you want to go. You got to get ready for this trip. But anything else you want to add on anything?
No, it's just it's gonna be a fun trip in Lexington. I've had a lot of Big Blue Nation give me some words of advice in some form or fashion, going over there. But I think it's gonna be fun. I think most fans, of course, on social media say one thing,
of course,
they'll do the other. But it's gonna be cool. We're gonna be doing it at our shows and our content at KS Bar right there. I feel like that's the main place you got to do it if you're there. But I'm looking forward to it. I really am. Regardless if Arkansas wins or loses, it'll be a cool trip, and we're gonna see Lexington and I'm sure get a very nice, warm reception from everybody in Big Blue Nation. So it's going to be fun, though. And hopefully, here's the deal. I've said this before, and I say it again. If I leave Lexington with a black eye or with a bunch of scars on me, with a bloody nose or whatever, that means I left Lexington with a win.
There you go.
So, just saying, it's going to be dicey, and nobody's going to want to be around me if Arkansas pulls off an upset, because I will probably get things thrown at me. I'm just saying, I'm going to be that obnoxious. It'll be fun.
What time are you guys doing your show from KS Bar so people can show up and show support for Inside Arkansas?
Yeah, I'm sure that's what they'll do. It's going to be at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So each and every day right there at KS Bar. So yeah, we'll be set up there. We'll do some other things there too, but our main live stream will be there. We'll have a post-game show afterwards. I don't know if it'll be there though. I don't think we'll be able to do that if that ends up being a win. But yeah, it's gonna be fun though. It really is, and I'm excited to see what Lexington has in store and to go to Rupp. Like it'll be a good experience. I feel like if you're ever gonna go to a game with Rupp where there's energy, this might be the one to go to. So it'll be awesome.
I haven't been in a game about 4 or 5 years, and this was the one that I was, like I said, was planning on going to. Stuff popped up. Shit happens. Excuse my language, but stuff happens. It didn't work out. But you'll have a great time. And the one thing I will say, we've teased BBN, but they've been great to me. 99, like any fan base, 99.9% of them are great. You will have a great time. Lexington is awesome. And have fun, dude. And have fun. And we'll be watching you. We'll be listening to you. And we'll certainly be listening if Arkansas somehow pulls off the upset. So, John, thank you for the time. Again, Inside Arkansas, 1 p.m. Eastern from KS Bar this week, the Lockdown Razorbacks podcast. We appreciate your time, my man, and we'll talk soon, all right? All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute, but before we do, many of you ask me all the time, Torres, what can I do to help support the show? You give me hours and hours and hours of content every single week. What can I do to help you? Well, I'll tell you what, do me a quick favor. Check out the Aaron Torres Media merchandise store for all of your team-specific shirts, hats, and more, all available at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. A lot of you wondering, Torres, what can I get in that merch store? Well, first of all, we got our brand new Hope and Pope Kentucky basketball t-shirts. That's right. Mark Pope has arrived. He is here to save the day. Get your Hope and Pope t-shirts there. Also, Arkansas fans, the Big Pig Invasion is here. You can get your tees there. Basketball School Alabama shirts. Mora Hurley 2024 UConn shirts for your tailgates at Rentschler Field, your games at the XL Center or Gamble. And oh, by the way, your Mike effing Woodson gear for Indiana. If you love football, we got you covered too. We got more Dion shirts and hats than we even know what to do with. The freeze warning has hit the plains. Auburn fans, grab your freeze warning tees now. And of course, our new era, new rules shirt applies to Nebraska football and its incredible fan base. We have more coming for the fall, plenty in stock right now. So make sure to check out the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. And you can always hit me up with any questions. Aaron Torres Podcast. All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. Final segment of the show. So good to be back. By the way, appreciate John Nabors taking some time with us. The comment section was humming. And yeah, I know a lot of you are going to go, introduce yourselves at KS Bar. John will be there, I guess, 1 p.m. Eastern time, Thursday and Friday of this week. But John was great. Certainly created some interest in some conversations. But this is what I want to do now. First of all, thank you again to John Nabors. Let's go ahead and wrap the show. And let's go ahead and just kind of talk big picture, just some of the games this coming weekend, because it's going to be a great weekend in college basketball. One thing I'll say, and I do kind of say this every year, yes, I work for Fox Sports in addition to the Aaron Torres pod. But one thing I always appreciate, ESPN always does an amazing job of making sure this Saturday between the NFC and AFC championship game and the Super Bowl is loaded with college hoops games. And so I think we need to go ahead and thank them and appreciate them, give them some credit here because we got a loaded slate. Fox, by the way, has a couple monster games as well. And so let's go ahead and dive in. And by the way, yes, I think ESPN did make a colossal mistake not going to Arkansas for John Calipari's return. Just based on the comment section, I'm pretty sure that it is going to be very lively. So let's go ahead and make picks for those Saturday games. And listen, we've spent the whole show talking about this game, so I'm not going to beat around the bush. Let's talk Arkansas at Kentucky. John Calipari's return, 9 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. It is worth noting we're recording here midday on Thursday. There are no point spreads. I would guess Arkansas is pretty close, or Kentucky's really pretty close to a double-digit favorite. But it is worth noting a few things. Listen, we know Arkansas is not playing very well right now. We know they're not very good. We know that Boogie Fland is out for the year. But obviously, we don't kind of know the status of several players on Kentucky. Lamont Butler, I know that Mark Pope said after the Tennessee game that if we were playing tomorrow, he would not be available. So I'll be curious if Lamont Butler is ready to go. Seemed really banged up those 2 or 3 games before he sat out against Tennessee. And then also on top of that, listen, Andrew Carr, I hope this doesn't sound mean or that I'm rooting against him. I just think that, he missed 2 games and then he came back for Tennessee, played 2 or 3 minutes and then came out. I just don't think until I see that kid playing 18, 20, 25 minutes that you can realistically expect him to be a regular contributor for that team. So you get deeper into the bench, you get deeper into guys that are, weren't expected to take on roles that they currently have. And I will say, and I know I'm going to make the chat angry right now, Arkansas, yes, we know they're struggling. It's not, if Lamont Butler cannot play, and obviously Kirk Reese is not playing as well, it's not the worst matchup for Arkansas, because with Arkansas, listen, we've talked about it time and time again. The offense isn't good. 3-point shooting isn't good. But to me, the big issue for Arkansas, and I keep saying it, is the fact that all season long, it's not just that the 3-point shooting is bad. It's that they're not a good rebounding team as well. And so listen, everybody has strengths and weaknesses, but with Arkansas, their two biggest weaknesses coincide with each other, which makes it just a really, really, really tough spot for Arkansas to actually win games. Because at the end of the day, when you can't shoot well, you have to be able to rebound well. We've talked about it a million times with Texas A&M. Texas A&M is not a good 3-point shooting team, but they are the number one offensive rebounding team in all of college basketball. And that has an impact, and that weighs on the fact, and that is the reason that they are having success. If you can't shoot, you got to rebound. Arkansas does not. And so I just bring it up because the one win that they have in SEC play, they were able to crash the glass. They were plus 10 on the boards against Georgia, 18 offensive rebounds. And, what's especially frustrating if you're an Arkansas fan, you sat there and said, maybe we found some blueprint. Maybe we found some formula. Maybe we found something. And then they immediately get killed on the boards against Oklahoma. And so I bring it up because for Arkansas to stay in this game, they have to be able to rebound. And let's be honest, while statistically Kentucky is a good rebounding team, that is not, and the low post is not an area of strength for that team. We've talked about Amari Williams. We've talked about the fact that even Kentucky fans will say in certain games we have played soft. And so that, to me, becomes the big conversation. Can Arkansas get enough second and third chance opportunities to keep themselves in this game? Because ultimately, we know there's going to be a 3-point differential. We know that Kentucky's probably going to hit somewhere in the neighborhood of like 10 to 15 threes. And Arkansas is going to probably hit somewhere in the neighborhood of like 3 to 5, okay? So you're already starting with somewhere around a 15-point difference. You have to get second and third chance opportunities. And I will say, I do think you are going to get some version of the best Arkansas team that you're going to get. Now, what is the best Arkansas team relative to the rest of the SEC? It ain't Alabama. It ain't Auburn. It ain't Kentucky at full strength. I'll tell you that. I do think we're going to get some version of the best version of Arkansas. But can they rebound enough? Can they hit enough shots to win? Ultimately, listen, I could beat around the bush. We could do a 10, 15-minute segment on this game alone. We've done enough on this game here on a Thursday afternoon. Listen, I'll pick Kentucky to win. I do think it's a little bit more low scoring. I do think Arkansas has to pressure the ball if they want to win this game. And I do think that's a situation where they can create. Listen, they've started pressing over probably the last 3 or 4 games. If they can press and create some turnovers, that becomes a different conversation. I think it's low scoring. I still think Kentucky wins. I think they're, listen, they're the better team. There's nothing else to say at this point. I'll say Kentucky 71, Arkansas 64, a little bit of a more low scoring game. Kentucky got to get healthy, but I don't think this is the game where they get exposed. Kentucky gets the victory. Let's go to the next game. And let's get to the other big one that ESPN has decided they need to go to, and that is Duke, Carolina. It is at Cameron Indoor, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday. First of all, I know there's going to be Carolina fans and Duke fans watching this. I'm sorry. ESPN made a mistake. Listen, ESPN should be at Rupp Arena. Rupp Arena is going to be the craziest, wildest environment we've seen in college basketball in years. And whatever you think about John Calipari, he is a Hall of Famer who did bring a national championship to Kentucky. And so there's that variable. And then the other variable is North Carolina isn't good. Like, if the argument is that, well, Arkansas stinks, that's why we didn't send game day to Rupp Arena, okay, fine. You know who else stinks? North Carolina, 13-9 overall, 6-4 in the ACC. And here's the other thing with Carolina. It's not even like they're playing well. It's not like they started, 4-8 and they've won 9 of 10 or whatever. It's like, no. They have lost 3 of their last 4 in a bad ACC. The only win that they have over that stretch is an overtime win against an awful Boston College team. And so, the likelihood of Arkansas, Kentucky not being good is there. The likelihood that Carolina at Duke, with the worst Carolina team that we've maybe seen in a while, that one could get off the rails really quick, because even though Carolina missed the NCAA tournament a few years ago, they still had really good players. Armando Bacot, RJ Davis, Caleb Love. I understand that Carolina does have good players still. Like Ian Jackson is really good when he's on, but we've seen they're a flawed team that is easily beatable. And I think Duke is actually like a legitimately terrible matchup for North Carolina. Because what's the issue with North Carolina? Like when I talked about the Pitt game the other day, North Carolina fans got mad. Hey, where's the analysis? It's like we've had the same analysis on Carolina since May when the roster came together. They're too small. They don't have a big guy. They need a big guy, and they're going to get killed on the boards. And so with Carolina, it's almost like Arkansas. We knew what their weakness was coming into the season. It was a lack of size down low. They're not going to be a great rebounding team. So it's almost the reverse of Arkansas. You have to be a great three-point shooting team. The issue is they shoot 32% from three. That's not going to get good enough. That's not going to be good enough when you play four guards, and that is your best lineup. And so I could go on and on, but you look at Duke. Listen, we know about Duke. We know about Cooper Flagg. And the one thing I will say about Cooper Flagg, he is actually starting to play legitimately his best basketball, which is pretty awesome to see. Like, it's one thing to kind of have a one-and-done superstar. It's one thing to have a one-and-done superstar that, ESPN, frankly, probably, in theory could be overhyping. But he's finally starting to play like the number one overall pick. And I don't say finally because he was never bad. But I think we've seen the best version of Cooper Flagg here over the last 3 or 4 games, okay? You look at the game on Monday against NC State. It wasn't pretty, but Cooper Flagg was phenomenal. 28.7 rebounds, 3 assists, 24.7 rebounds, 6 assists in the win over Wake, and, of course, 28 points against Boston College last Saturday or 2 Saturdays ago when he returned to New England. So Cooper Flagg's playing his best basketball, but I think more importantly, I know there's this whole thing of throw rivalries out, throw records out the window when there's a rivalry. It's like, well, maybe, but not in this case, okay? Because Carolina, this is a bad matchup for them. They're small. They don't rebound well. Duke is, as we all know, not only really good, they are statistically the tallest team in all of college basketball. And so I don't really see the pathway for Carolina winning this game, especially on the road. Listen, I know sometimes even at Duke, you can get a good Carolina crowd. If I'm a Carolina fan, I'm not paying $200, $300 to get in the arena to watch this team against a rival who is clearly better. So with Duke, they're playing really well. I still question how much of this is just that the ACC is not very good, but it is hard for me to find a scenario where Duke wins this game. I'll say Duke 82, North Carolina 68. I just don't think Carolina is very good right now. I expect a Duke win and a convincing Duke win at that. Let's keep it going. Saturday night, Fox, UConn at Marquette, top 25 matchup. Although I think even UConn fans will admit UConn ain't playing like a top 25 team right now. They were trailing DePaul at the half. To their credit, they made a run in the second half. The defense was much better, but they're now traveling to Marquette. These were the 2 teams that were picked to finish atop the Big East last year. They were 1-2 by a mile in the Big East last year. But like I said, hasn't really worked out from the UConn side of things. From the Marquette side of things, though, they are largely living up to expectations. Marquette, as we speak, is currently 18-3 overall, probably the quietest 18-3 top 10 team in America. And will have won, they're 9-1 in the Big East. They have won 9 of their last 10 overall. The one thing I will say about Marquette is that if you actually look at the schedule, it has been very favorable early for them. It's going to get very tough as the season goes on. Still have 2 games against Duke, still have 2 games against St. John's, which I actually believe is the best team in the Big East this year, not Marquette, not UConn. Still have to go to Nova, still have to go to Creighton. So basically of the 5 teams that are even in tournament contention right now, Marquette is one of them. They have to play the other 4 teams on the road, plus UConn at home, plus St. John's at home throughout the season. Marquette, despite the fact that I just kind of, was a little bit critical, what you need to know about this game, what they do well is the same thing they always do well. They are great defensively. They force a lot of pressure, and they force a lot of turnovers, okay? I know we don't really talk about turnover margin in basketball the way we do football, but number 2 in the country in turnover margin. They force a lot more turnovers than they allow, top 15 or so in the nationally in total forced turnovers. So that's what they do, and I think it's an interesting spot as they face a UConn team that right now just transparently, like UConn, it's like the Titanic. They have a bunch of different holes. They try to fill one, the next one pops open, and it's just been an ugly few weeks. But I also would be remiss if I didn't say that it's been an ugly few weeks, basically since Liam McNeely, the star freshman, went out with an injury. This was a team that when Liam McNeely got hurt against DePaul on January 1st, they were 11-3, basically had won every game they were on a, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-game win streak following Maui. And so they were on a 7-game win streak following Maui, playing well, and then your star freshman gets hurt, and then in the least surprising news ever, you haven't been the same team. 4-3 overall. There is a possibility that Liam McNeely comes back for this game. I'm not super optimistic. Dan Hurley said something in the postgame from DePaul about, if we get him back, as if it didn't seem like it was a pressing thing. And if Liam McNeely doesn't play, I think this UConn team has too many holes, okay? Alex Caravan is not playing well right now. I feel bad for him. Doesn't feel like the same player since those missed free throws against Villanova. I remember talking about that a few weeks ago. Hassan Diarra, I think, is dealing with some injuries, but he's playing through them. Jalen Stewart, love the kid, but one good game, one bad game. There's just not a lot of consistency. He's a sophomore. It's okay. He'll get there, but he's not there right now. Really, the only consistent from UConn is Solo Ball, the sophomore, who has been phenomenal all season long, 15 points per game, and had a couple really big shots in that DePaul game. So listen, I think if I knew Liam McNeely was going to be back, I might feel a little bit different. And I might feel a little bit different by the time these two teams play in Connecticut at UConn in about 3 weeks from now, the first full week of March, the final full week of the regular season. With that said, though, it's hard for me right now to expect UConn to go on the road and beat Marquette. So I will take Marquette final score. I'll say 74-68. Marquette gets the win. UConn right now, I trust my Huskies, but they're struggling. There's no other way to put it. Last game that I really want to hit on, by the way, I should mention, there's a great Friday night game, Indiana at Purdue. Listen, I think Purdue's going to win. Actually, I think the game is at Indiana. I apologize if I said Purdue at Indiana. I think the game, let me check here really quick, is Friday night. I believe it is. Let's make sure. Yeah, it is at Purdue. Purdue's going to win that game going away. There's nothing else to say. Indiana fans have officially turned on Mike Woodson. I don't think there's a ton to add there. Purdue, listen, I made fun of them a lot last year with the Zach Edey stuff. They're actually a much more enjoyable watch right now without a 7'4" guy in the middle of the paint. But I don't see the scenario. Indiana goes in there and gets the win. Let's wrap on that one right there. Top 10 matchup. Florida against Tennessee. Again, it's early. We do not have a point spread on this game. I think it's kind of interesting. One, Tennessee is obviously coming in on a 2-game losing streak. Lost at Auburn last week. There's no shame in that. Then you come home. You're a 10.5-point favorite against Kentucky. You do not get the win. So it'll be interesting, Tennessee's mindset on the 2-game losing streak. It'll also be interesting because remember, Florida embarrassed Tennessee the first time these two teams played. It was at the O-Dome. It was the second game of SEC play. Tennessee was undefeated and ranked number 1 in the country at that point, and Florida won by 30 freaking points, okay? As far as this game is concerned, I'm actually going to do something a little bit surprising. I am going to take Florida to go on the road and Florida to get the upset at, I call it Thompson Bowling Arena. That's not what they call it anymore in Knoxville. I'm going to take them to pull off the upset. Florida's won 5 of 6 in a really tough SEC. And I just think this Tennessee team, I think we're seeing their weaknesses in real time. I think we are seeing the fact that when Chaz Lanier doesn't go for 20, they struggle to put the ball in the basket. So I'm going to go ahead and take Tennessee to lose this game, Florida to win it at home. All right, I'll tell you what, we've been on air here for about an hour 15. It is time for me to get out of here. First of all, appreciate everybody's support, monster live audience, and it is time for me to go. Thank you to everybody for listening. Thank you for the very lively comment section, and I hope everybody enjoys a great weekend of college basketball. We'll be back on Sunday to recap everything, and we will have plenty to talk about. I promise you that. Time for me to go. Appreciate everybody's support. By the way, it looks as though Mark Pope is doing a press conference literally as I speak, so may go watch the rest of that. But thank you all for listening, and we will have plenty to talk about on Sunday morning. Shout out to Torrent Craig. Shout out to Rachel, who hates my voice. Shout out to JJ Reddick, you F-Ed. Unblock me, bro. I'll be back Sunday morning. A lot to react to. Aaron Torres Pod.